Imagine the Dutch Republic in the late 17th century. It's a land of bustling cities, canals reflecting grand merchant houses, and ports packed with ships returning from every corner of the known world. This isn't just a country, it's Europe's economic engine, a powerhouse built on trade, finance, and an almost arrogant sense of security. The Dutch believed their navy, the pride of the nation, was invincible. Their wealth could solve any problem, and their intricate network of alliances kept their rivals at bay. They were the masters of the sea, the titans of commerce. But beneath this shimmering surface of prosperity, the political winds were shifting. Old friends were becoming new enemies. In the courts of England and France, secret pacts were being signed, and a storm of an unprecedented scale was gathering, aimed squarely at the heart of the Republic. The Golden Age was about to be shattered, and the Dutch were blissfully unaware that their world was on the brink of collapse. They were about to learn a brutal lesson: wealth cannot buy safety, and a powerful navy is useless when the enemy is already at your door. The year is 1672. The storm breaks. Suddenly, the Dutch Republic finds itself in a nightmare scenario, a war on all fronts. From the west, the mighty English navy, a familiar rival, engages the Dutch fleet in a brutal struggle for control of the seas. This alone would be a national crisis. But this time, it's different. From the south, an even greater threat emerges. Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, unleashes the largest, best-trained, and best-equipped army in Europe. A force of over 100,000 soldiers pours across the border, not alone, but supported by armies from the Prince-Bishopric of Munster and the Electorate of Cologne. It's a coordinated, multi-pronged invasion designed for one purpose: the complete annihilation of the Dutch Republic. Animated maps from the era would have shown a terrifying flood of enemy forces swallowing Dutch territory. The scale was overwhelming, the speed breathtaking. The Dutch had prepared for a war at sea. They were now facing a war for their very existence on land. The illusion of security was gone, replaced by the shocking reality of invasion. The Dutch land defences, neglected for decades in favour of the navy, crumbled almost overnight. The famous Dutch fortresses, designed to be bastions of defence, were undermanned, poorly supplied, and their commanders were unprepared for the sheer velocity of the French assault. The French army didn't get bogged down in long sieges. They simply bypassed or quickly overwhelmed one fortress after another. Panic began to spread like wildfire. We see images of Dutch garrisons abandoning their posts, sometimes without firing a single shot. Soldiers, gripped by fear and confusion, retreated in disarray. The lines of defense that looked so formidable on paper simply evaporated in the face of the enemy's blitz. Behind them, a tide of desperate refugees flowed from the countryside into the core provinces, carrying with them stories of defeat and terror. The roads were clogged with families fleeing with whatever they could carry. The Dutch state had invested its identity and its treasure in its ships, and now, its neglected land defences had failed catastrophically at the first real test. The enemy wasn't at the gates, they were already inside, and there was seemingly nothing to stop them. As the French army pushed deeper, the military crisis spiraled into a political and social meltdown. The Dutch people, who just weeks before felt secure in their wealth, were now consumed by fear. In the cities of Holland, panic turned to fury. Who was to blame? The finger pointed squarely at the political leadership, particularly the Grand Pensionary, Johan de Witt, and his brother Cornelis. For years, they had championed a republic without a Prince of Orange in supreme command, focusing on trade and naval power while letting the army wither. Now, their policies seemed to have led the nation to ruin. Mobs roamed the streets, demanding a change in leadership. They called for the young Prince of Orange, William III, to be given full command, to be the saviour the nation desperately needed. In the halls of government, emergency councils were held day and night. The situation was desperate. With the French just miles from Amsterdam, the unthinkable was being considered: surrendering vast territories to appease the invaders. But even that wasn't enough for Louis XIV, who demanded near total submission. The Dutch were trapped. Their army was broken, their government was in chaos, and their people were on the verge of revolt. This was the Rampjaar, the disaster year, a time when the very soul of the Dutch Republic was being tested in a crucible of fear and desperation. In this moment of ultimate crisis, with French troops threatening to march into Amsterdam itself, the Dutch made a final, desperate gamble. They turned to their oldest and most powerful ally, the water. On the orders of the desperate government, engineers and soldiers began the systematic process of opening the sluices and breaking the dikes. This was a monumental and heart-wrenching decision. They deliberately flooded their own country, sacrificing rich farmland, villages, and property to create a formidable barrier of water. The Dutch waterline, a last line of defense, began to form, halting the French advance just short of the Republic's core. The war was far from over. The initial collapse had been swift and brutal, but it had not been final. Out of the depths of despair, a new resolve was forged. The political turmoil would soon reach a bloody climax with the murder of the De Witt brothers, and William of Orange would rise to lead the nation. The disaster year of 1672 was a story of catastrophic failure, of a nation brought to its knees by its own complacency. But it was also the beginning of a remarkable comeback. It was a brutal, terrifying lesson that forced the Dutch to reinvent themselves, to fight for their survival, and ultimately, to endure. 1672, when collapse forced reinvention. Thanks for watching, and if you found this piece of history fascinating, be sure to like and subscribe for more.